The uninvited. The morning in Greenwich dawned with a painter's touch, the soft April light washing the cherry blossoms in St. Mary's church garden in a delicate, hopeful pink. Inside the historic church, amidst this perfect backdrop, Emma Wilson sat before a gilded mirror, a vision in white silk and anticipation. Today, she would make the most important vow of her life. In the bridal room, the air was thick with the scent of flowers and quiet tension. Maria, the makeup artist, applied the final touches with a delicate hand, while Emma's lifelong friend, Linda, fussed with the lace veil. "It's strange," Linda murmured, her eyes darting to the clock. "Your mother, she's not here." Emma's reflection in the mirror showed a flicker of unease. Margaret Wilson, a woman who documented her grocery runs for Instagram, had promised a full-scale photoshoot of the bridal preparations. "We'll get the golden hour light," she had texted last night, but now, her seat was empty. So was her father's, so was her sister Ashley's. Emma's phone lay silent on the vanity. No calls, no texts, even Ashley's hyperactive Instagram feed, a constant stream of curated life, had gone dark since the previous evening. The silence was a void, swallowing the morning's joy. Sarah, the wedding planner, entered with a clipboard and a forced smile that instantly vanished. "The pastor is ready for the final run-through. Where is your family?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. From the chapel beyond, the muffled sounds of arriving guests carried whispers that seeped under the door. "I don't see the Wilsons anywhere. How peculiar." Then, a chime. The screen lit up. "Mom." A collective breath was held. The room froze. "Mom, are you at the church?" Emma's voice was thin, hopeful. What answered her was not the solemn hush of a church, but the raucous crash of waves and a steel guitar. "Emma, aloha, sweetheart." Her mother's voice was bright and distant. For a moment, Emma's mind refused to map the sound to meaning. "What, Mom? Today is my wedding." "Oh, was that today?" her mother trilled, the words slurred by sunshine and something stronger. "Sophie's spring break came up, and we just thought a family vacation was a priority." In the background, Ashley's laugh, sharp and mocking, cut through the static. "Mom, this Mai Tai is divine." The world tilted. Emma's hand, holding the phone, began to tremble, causing the pristine white silk of her gown to shiver. A single, hot tear escaped, tracing a path through Maria's carefully applied foundation. "You're joking," Emma whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of a betrayal so complete it felt surreal. "We'll send pictures. The light here is just perfect for my stories." Ashley's voice chirped, closer to the receiver now. "My followers are going to love this." The line went dead. The phone slid from Emma's numb fingers, thudding dully onto the plush carpet. The sound was a period at the end of her old life. Linda, Maria, and Sarah stood as statues, their faces masks of shared, horrified disbelief. A quiet, firm knock broke the silence. The door opened to reveal Jennifer Anderson, a woman whose poise was as much a part of Greenwich as the old church itself. In her hands was an iPad, its screen a brutal collage of her family's betrayal, beaming faces, tropical drinks, and a Hawaiian sunset. "I saw their posts," Jennifer said, her voice low and steady, a contained storm. She had been a family friend for 2 decades, a respected benefactor of Emma's hospital, a woman of substance in a world of surface. "I've watched you grow up, Emma. I've watched them." She crossed the room, her presence an anchor in the swirling chaos. She took Emma's cold hands in her warm, capable ones. "Today," Jennifer said, her gaze unwavering, "let me stand in for your family." A sob escaped Emma, but it was not one of despair. It was the release of a dam, the overwhelming flood of being seen and chosen. These were not the tears of an abandoned daughter, but of a woman found. Now, Jennifer's voice took on a new, steely edge. "Let's post something of our own." "Post?" Emma breathed, confused. "On their precious social media. But first," Jennifer said, a determined glint in her eye, "we take a more beautiful picture." She led Emma from the lonely bridal room into the heart of the chapel. The morning sun, streaming through the magnificent stained glass windows, enveloped them in a cascade of jeweled light. It felt like a benediction, a new beginning painted in faith and forgiveness. "Let's create a new family," Jennifer whispered, just as the church bells began to peal. their joyous clamor shaking the very foundations and announcing a different wedding than anyone had expected. The guests who gathered were not just attendees. They were a congregation of the loyal. Emma's grandfather, his face a granite mask of fury, gripped his cane so tightly the wood groaned. Her aunt from her mother's side wept silent, angry tears as she clutched Emma's hand, her grip speaking of a bond deeper than social media frivolity. Colleagues from the hospital, men and women who faced life and death with calm, were visibly shaken. Childhood friends formed a protective circle around her, their presence a warm, wordless fortress. When Emma finally stood at the altar, David's hand found hers. His eyes held no pity, only a profound, fierce love. "Emma," he began, his voice resonating in the hushed church. "The people who were supposed to be here today chose a postcard over a promise. But look around. Our family is here." His gaze swept over the faces of everyone present, the relatives, the friends, the mentors. "Today, we aren't just marrying each other. We are weaving a new family, with every single soul in this room." And as Emma looked out at the sea of faces, alight with love and solidarity, she understood. The vow she was about to make was not just to David, but to all of them, and the family she was gaining was far greater, and far more real, than the one she had lost. The tears that fell from Emma's eyes as she stood at the altar were not of sorrow, but of a profound, overwhelming grace. They landed on the silk of her wedding dress, not as stains of grief, but as glistening seals on a new beginning. The reception that followed was not a somber wake for a broken family, but a vibrant celebration of a forged one. The air hummed with a fierce, protective love that transcended genetics. The clinking of a spoon on a champagne flute brought a respectful hush. Emma's paternal grandfather rose to his feet, his presence a bastion of the old guard. Today, his voice, weathered yet firm, filled the room. "A branch of the Wilson family tree has shown itself to be rotten. They have chosen a postcard over a promise, a fleeting trend over a timeless tradition. This is a disgrace I never imagined I would witness." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the gathered faces. "But today has also shown me that a family is not a pedigree chart. It is a fortress, built brick by brick with loyalty, love, and presence. And looking at all of you here, I see a fortress stronger than any I have ever known." As he sat down, Jennifer Anderson stood. She didn't need to command silence. Her dignity did it for her. "They have their version of events on a beach," she began, her voice calm and clear. "I propose we share ours, not with anger, but with truth. Let's show them what they missed, and in doing so, formalize the beautiful, messy, real family that was born here today." A wave of agreement moved through the room. Emma's aunt, her eyes red-rimmed but her jaw set, declared, "Let's turn our heartbreak into their lesson." A business partner added, "The market should know the character of the men it invests in." A childhood friend simply said, "We have your back, Em, always." The ideas wove together, not as a plan for vengeance, but as a charter for their new community. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of gold and rose, Jennifer took out her phone. On the large screen at the front of the room, she pulled up the social media app that had been the Wilson family's altar. "Ready?" she asked Emma. Emma nodded, a steady calm having replaced her earlier tremors. David's arm was a solid anchor around her waist. The first post was a single, stunning photograph, Emma and Jennifer, framed by the church's magnificent stained glass window. Their faces were not smiling broadly, but their expressions spoke of deep affection and unshakable resolve. The caption, written in Emma's voice, began, "I'd like to introduce the woman who stood in the gap today, my mother of the bride, Mrs. Jennifer Anderson. While my birth family informed me they preferred a Hawaiian vacation, Mrs. Anderson taught me that family is a choice you make every day with your presence." The post went live. For a moment, the room was silent, watching the screen. Then, the notifications began, not a trickle, but a flood. Likes, hearts, shocked comments, and messages of support from the local community, business associates, and even strangers filled the feed. An impromptu council formed. An uncle, a lawyer, outlined cold, hard facts. From a legal standpoint, Robert has opened himself to shareholder derivative suits. The damage to the company's reputation is quantifiable. A business executive nodded. Wilson property stock is already plummeting in after-hours trading. The board will have no choice but to act. Emma listened, then spoke, her voice soft but firm. This was never about money or revenge for me. It was about love, and we've already won that. Her grandfather nodded, his eyes proud. The family's honor must be restored. This is the only way. As the spring sunset streamed through the windows, casting long, warm shadows, the entire assembly of 50 guests gathered for a final photograph. It was a portrait of a covenant, faces filled not with party-time cheer, but with the profound solemnity of a shared vow. With that photo, the final post was made. It was a simple, powerful statement, signed collectively by every person in the room. Today, we, the family of Emma and David Chen, formally sever all ties with Robert, Margaret, and Ashley Wilson. You have forfeited the right to the name family by your actions. Do not contact us again. The click of the camera shutter seemed to mark the end of an era. 1 year later, spring had returned to Greenwich, and the cherry blossoms at St. Mary's were, if anything, more beautiful than the year before. The wedding that wasn't had become a modern parable. It was a story discussed on talk shows and in newspaper columns, a cautionary tale about the hollowness of a curated life. The Wilson family's downfall was as swift as it was severe. The termination of the Anderson Mall contract, worth $10 million annually, was the first domino to fall. Other partners, wary of associating with a man who couldn't manage his own family, swiftly followed. Within 6 months, Robert Wilson was ousted by his own board. The president who had prioritized his golf handicap was now running a one-man real estate brokerage from a dusty storefront. Margaret Wilson's social media empire crumbled into digital dust. Her account, bombarded with criticism, was deactivated. The spa appointments, the charity galas, the adoring followers, all vanished. Her doctor now calls it situational depression. Her empty house echoes with the silence of her own making. Ashley, the influencer, found her influence had a negative value. Brand deals evaporated. Her follower count collapsed. The financial director, who once looked down on service work, now spends her days perfecting the foam on lattes at a local cafe, her head bowed in anonymity. But in a sun-drenched mansion on the other side of town, a different story unfolded. Last month, Emma's pregnancy announcement was met with over 100,000 likes, a number that felt genuine, a chorus of real joy. Jennifer Anderson, the proud godmother-to-be, had framed the sonogram. Every Sunday, the new family gathers for dinner, grandfather, aunts, uncles, friends, colleagues. The table is loud, warm, and full. Emma's Today's Smile series at the Children's Hospital has become its own kind of social media phenomenon, one built on authentic joy. On their first anniversary, they gathered again at St. Mary's for a Mass of Thanksgiving. The old pastor smiled as he addressed them. I have married and buried people in this church for 40 years, he said. I have learned that God's family is never defined by blood, but by spirit. You, all of you, are a living testament to that truth. Emma, her hand resting on the gentle swell of her belly, leaned into David's side. Around them was the quiet hum of belonging. The cherry blossom petals danced outside on the spring breeze, no longer symbols of a broken day, but of a bond that had been tested, broken, and rebuilt into something far more resilient. They were a family, not by chance, but by choice, and their story was no longer one of scandal, but of a love that proved real enough to change everything.